Well, good morning, everybody. This is Jeff from Rust Bucket Valley Garage. I'd like to talk to you this morning a little bit about gear ratios and why they're important and how they affect the performance of your vehicle. We had to take and change the housing on the front end for the JK because the housing was really bent. If you remember back, one of my previous videos, it was bent about a tenth of an inch, so 0.102 was the measurement. So if there are 1,000 thousandths in an inch, this was 102 of them. So that was a pretty decent bend. So anyway, what we have to do is we have to take all the gears and everything that are in the front end, and we have to remove them and move them over to the front end, which means that there's a separate set of shims, which are these things right here. This is a different crush sleeve. This is a crush sleeve right here. Maintains a distance between the two bearings. This right here would be where your drive shaft would hook up to. This has serrations inside of it, and it's splined to this shaft right here. There's a nut that goes in there, and it holds all this together. So when it's in configuration, it would look like this. Okay. Here are the bearings. There are 4 bearings on the thing. There is one bearing on the inside of the case, one bearing on the outside of the case to make this smooth running. This is the carrier assembly that has the spider gears inside, which are right here. Okay. It has one bearing here and one bearing on the other side. When it is in the housing, it is moved via the shims right here back and forth to take and make the pattern, which will be the contact angle or the contact face of this assembly right here into this assembly right here. This is called the ring gear. Okay, this is a pinion assembly. Okay, when people talk about gear ratios, when I was back in school a long time ago, 411 gear ratio was a pretty good ratio to have. Posi traction and all that kind of stuff, limited slip differential, all this has to do with this kind of thing here and different configurations you can get. Gear ratio is the thing that's very important, whether you want one kind of performance or another kind of performance out of your vehicle. If you have a vehicle that you would like higher speeds out of, okay, you want this one here to be turning at nearly the same rate that this one here does. So that means you would want a lower gear ratio. Okay, the gear ratio of this one right here out of the Jeeps and the JK for 2013, there's about 5 different ones. This one happens to be 321 and is actually expressed as 3.21. And the way they take and get that is they count the number of teeth that are on this gear right here, which is a pinion gear, and that number is 14. You count the number of teeth that is on this gear, which is 45, and you take 45 and divide it by 14, and you get 3.21. Okay, this one right here is a decent gear ratio for the Jeeps. If you want to have more torque, you can turn this more times to make this go around. When you're talking about 3.21, it means that this pinion gear right here has to turn around 3 and almost a quarter turn to make this turn once. Okay, so if you have a higher gear ratio, which they have 4 point something, you will get a little bit more torque and that'll be kind of an upgrade. So that will fit in this housing. So it's basically just a little bit of insight as to how the gear ratios affect whether you want more torque out of your vehicle or you want more speed out of your vehicle. If you want more speed, it'll be a lower gear ratio. If you want more torque, it will be a higher gear ratio. So it means this will turn more times, so they can make it all the way around, really takes and puts the power to the axles and then to the wheels. You have to be careful when you have to get a balance, because as you provide more torque to from the transmission to the drive shaft, it'll take the drive shaft more energy to take and turn this if the gear ratio is higher. Okay, and in other words, you want more torque. Okay, it puts more stress on this whole carrier assembly, on the gears, on the axles, and you can wind up snapping axles and things like that. Very bad situation. So they have heavy-duty chrome moly axles, which are extra strong. You can take and put those in, last a long time. If you go larger tires, like if you have 37-inch tires, the JK comes standard with a 17-inch tire. So the 17-inch tire is a good match for this 3.21 ratio. If you go larger tires, you put additional stresses on things. You can be breaking axles and things. So you have to use a little bit of common sense and get a happy balance there. So it really depends on what you want to do with your vehicle. Do you want more torque or do you want higher speed? Okay, which is, if you have a higher speed, it means your engine can take and run at a lower RPM, maybe save on your fuel economy a little bit. If you have a higher gear ratio, the engine runs higher in RPM, and you burn a little bit more fuel to get where you're going, but you always have the torque available to take and get where you want to go over the next obstacle. Hope I've given you a little bit of information this morning on how gear ratio affects the performance of your vehicles, and what the different parts are that are in the pumpkin or rear end of your vehicle, and how the drive shaft will transmit your energy to the wheels. So it goes from, this is called a yoke. Okay, yoke goes on the pinion gear. Pinion gear runs a ring gear, okay, which takes and transmits the energy to the axles and then to the tires. Okay, that's the whole thing in a nutshell. Hope I've given you some good information. I hope you have a wonderful day, and please subscribe, hit the notification button. You'll find out when we do something new. Thanks for stopping by.